John turned it. I don't know if this microphone is turned on the live feed. If you are watching from home, I need you to text the prayer line. Here comes Todd, which is, I'll pull it up on my phone. It's all right. You do what you need to do. I don't text the prayer line. I just pray. Sorry. I'm glad some of you laughed at that joke. Okay, if you are watching from home, for the purposes of signing you in, please text 817-888-0607 and give us your name and who's watching with you. We do need to record attendance, members and non-members. If you are arriving and you have yet to sign in, please sign in either on the member or non-member side. Again, if you're watching online, if you could please text 817-888-0607 with your name and who's watching. That will help us out. I'm going to open in prayer and then we'll jump in. Lord, we are so grateful for all you are doing here at Grace Community Church. And most of the time when we're standing up here, we are preaching and we are speaking your word, and we are doing our best to connect the community to Christ and to care for people, to help cultivate their gifts. And tonight, Lord, we want to be good stewards of the resources you've entrusted to us. And so our goal tonight is to share the celebration of all that you're doing, all that you have done, and all that you're going to do, to share the numbers of where things are at, and answer any questions. And Lord, I pray that we would accomplish everything that you want us to accomplish. There is so many wonderful things that have happened, and this is just one small area. It's big when it comes to the amount of money that's been spent, but it's one small area of all the things that you're doing at Grace Community Church. And I am grateful for that, Father. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Again, if you are watching online, if you're just now joining, if you can text the number 817-888-0607 and give us your name. We need to give an account for everybody who's a part of this tonight. I do hope there are many who are watching online, and I'm glad that you're able to join. Always in person is better. If possible, I understand those who can't. If you have questions, if you're online and you end up having questions, please also text that number, and somebody will get me the questions so that I can answer them for you. I have 6 things that I want to do tonight. The first will be to show you how far we've come. The second will be to update you on how far we have to go. The third is to give an account of how we've spent our resources. The fourth is to share with you how we intend to spend the rest of the resources. And the fifth is to make you aware of what our current needs are, and then certainly have time for questions. If you have questions in between, you are welcome to interrupt and ask me, or if you want to write them down and save them to the end, that's of course fine as well. I want to do my best to be transparent. Our goal is always to be transparent with everything that we have here at the church. We have nothing to hide. I will answer as many of the questions as you have that I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll send Rory to figure it out, because he'll be the one who can figure it out. So is it ready? Okay, let's go ahead and we can just kill all the lights. I want to show you, especially for those who are new to the church and you've come since after we moved from Southlake, I want to show you where we started. And so we're just going to walk through. So when we first moved here, the church was named North Creek, and we're just going to go through some slides and show you what we inherited. This was our parking lot. If you see up against the building, there's a bunch of overgrowth. You can go to the next slide. Again, we're just showing you different sides. See all this overgrowth that was there, and the building, the property and the building had not been kept up very well. This was all, go back to that last one. This was all in front of the building. I mean, some of those weeds were, up to here on me. It was just, it was, it had been empty for a number of months. I'm not This isn't throwing shade on anybody. This is just what we walked into when we came in September of. I am sure you did, Greg. This is what we walked into in September of 2019. This is so. If you go outside now, none of this overgrowth is there. We've got rid of all of that, and I am very, very grateful for that. So people had started to dump things after the church closed. You can keep going. All of that, there was just people who just began to dump stuff in the back of the building, and that's after we had cleaned up all the trees, you can see, but there was still a bunch of trash that we grabbed. This was all overgrowth. That's this side of the property over here. If you're turned around, that's what it looked like when we walked in. They had a flood. You can go back. They had a flood, and they had come in and done what they do, where they pull off the cove base and drill holes so that they can get air and keep it from molding. But it hadn't been repaired yet. The urinal was out of order. The floors were just dirty from years and years of wear and tear. For those who were here, they had the pink chairs, the pink carpet. You can go to the next one. This is what the stage looked like when we moved in. You can see our stage. So that was to about right here for anybody who's wondering. It came out as far as this first step. So we've extended the stage that much since we've been here. And then, so this is twice we extended. This is the beginning of the changes. So we put the church sign in. We've, of course, painted the building. It's no longer red. This is the beautiful new parking lot. This is the new carpet in the classrooms. Of course, the entrances. This is a picture right after we had the carpet installed and the chairs set up the first time. And now we're at this is where we're at. So these pictures of the building were taken yesterday. This is currently where the building is at. That's obviously from the side. That's inside of that building. Hey, go back. David, we got a leak. Can you fix that? Yeah. No, I'm kidding. We don't have a leak. That was in there beforehand. And then that's from the very back of our property on the berm, if you are familiar. So that we've come a long ways in 4 years. And for those, I didn't show any pictures of those who were working on the day, the real big work day that we had. There was probably 30 people here that day. We tore up all the rocks and all the weeds went out. They put it back. We got rid of all the trash. We laid cove base in there before. I mean, we just did. We've done so much just physically on this property, and I'm grateful. I'm not sharing this to complain in any way. I'm sharing this to show you, even the progress on the current building is just one small part of the progress of what we've done since we've been here in 4 years in stewarding this property. We want to give a good representation of what the Lord has asked us to do on this property. And so that's how far we've come. It's pretty incredible. Anybody have any questions about that before I turn it over to David to tell you how far we have to go? He's responsible for that. He doesn't have to deal with any of the numbers, and for that he's very grateful. But he's going to talk to us about where the building is at and what is about to be happening in the building, what you guys can kind of expect, and I'll move my stuff for you. And you can turn the lights back on now. We don't have anything else to project at the moment.
Yeah, maybe. No? Dang. All right.
And it can be seen anyways. I just wanted to...
Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Oh, I wish I could do this so eloquently like Ben. He gets up here and he talks like he's just talking to us on the couch, you know? But, so obviously you guys saw where the building is now. We obviously have still yet to complete the exterior. Tomorrow we have more concrete coming, more drill. They're going to be drilling some more piers and setting the front ride-in process. Currently, we can call it ride-in in the sense that we can start building the interior of the building. But we ran into a snag we are working on, and we have to revise the plans a little bit, and we're resending them to the city on Monday. Don't worry, please don't worry, be prayerful about it, because it is going back to the city, but it's a very simple revision. It's just changing the interior partition walls. Basically, all the walls on the inside of the building none of it's going to be load bearing in any way, but it was planned to be steel stud, and we had originally wanted them to be wood stud, and so that has to be revised, so that way we can build it and not be red flagged and told we can't do any more work. So we don't want that. We are planning to have HVAC. We did sign a contract with them the last week, so we should be starting that on the 11th. So HVAC will start, and then as soon as
some air conditioning in my office in there, then is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, we should. That's loud. The freezer's in his office, and it's extremely loud in there. But we, as soon as we can get their machines out of the way from lifting the heaters and everything up into the attic space, then we could start building the interior walls. Right now, I've got it planned out. I was hoping to have a calendar up here for you guys, but if anybody wants to see it, they can. It's kind of lined item in the sense that we've got the drill and pour of the footings tomorrow all the way through when I'm expecting to be completed with the building. As of right now, if everything goes to plan and there are no surprises, as we haven't had any on this project at all, right?
Not one.
Not one. I'm looking right now as a completion of the build project to be, yeah, right? So I have request for final inspection on June 10th is when I'm hoping. No, was that a good O? That's a good O. Okay, good.
Hey, David.
Is that your birthday?
No,
You'll be at camp that week.
I could still request it.
Yeah, I'm just giving you.
Is that camp week?
Yeah.
I should probably put that on this schedule.
Actually, is that Friday?
No, that's June 10th is Monday.
Monday. Yeah, that's the day camp starts.
Yeah, okay. Well,
It's all right. You're going to camp and you're finishing the building because you're Superman.
absolutely. It'll happen. So I know that, Ben, I don't know if you're ever going to share. Maybe at the end we'll share, because there's a note out there somewhere that everybody said, hey, when do you think it'll be completed? And
there is a file right now that has the staff's guess dates on when the building will be done.
So what I think where there might be confusion, because I scared him with mine, is because he asked what the certificate of occupancy date is. And that's a huge difference. And I want everybody to know that, like, although I plan to be done by June 10th and requesting inspections, that doesn't mean, like, there's still a lot that has to happen after that. Like, fire safety has to come in, they have to check everything, the ADA has to come in, look over everything, make sure we built everything that, you know, like wheelchairs can get up and down and everything works out properly.
Just have them all come on the same day, 1 hour apart.
Sure. So again, build, I'm really praying that we are done in June, and then it's all up in, you know, God's hands on when we'll actually get certificate of occupancy to get in there. But I am truly, truly praying that graceful Thanksgiving, I never have to do that in here again.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
Where are we at with the water?
Okay, so I guess that's a good and a bad thing. The fire hydrant company, the company that's installing the fire hydrant, it's in their hands right now. We had been going back and forth with that company because the city required us to put in what is an RPDA valve, which is this huge monstrosity of a valve that goes between the city line and our line, because technically the fire hydrant is owned by the church. We have to put in a safety device that won't allow any water from our property to backflow into their line.
From the well.
Yeah.
Some of them don't know we have a well. That's why.
So when we first put the plans out there, our engineer didn't have that in the design because one, we didn't realize the city was going to require it, and the reason why they're requiring it was because we chose to use the well water as our way of irrigating the property for sprinklers. Well, I guess in Fort Worth's bylaws, they require this valve to go in, because if somebody by chance hooks a hose up from our well to that fire hydrant and the fire hydrant line loses pressure and we backflow into their system, then it could be bad. And because I'll say, well, we'll never do that, it doesn't matter. The Fort Worth will say, you could, and if that's a possibility, we have to protect ourselves. So that valve was a huge change order, and so we got a bid to have that valve put in. I know we weren't supposed to talk about money, but it was insane. And I worked with some plumbers. I tried very hard to get the valve myself. I couldn't do it. I was extremely downhearted one morning, and Ben prayed for me out here, and it was exciting because he just said, hey, let me reach out to this person and let's see if we can't get the valve. And that same day, that person sent me a spec sheet that I was able to send to the city, confirm that that would be a valve that was proper, and it came back to us way like a third of the price. And I was able to go down the next Monday, and I got it. It's out here. It's sitting on a pallet, and it's ready and waiting for the fire hydrant company to install. So that's exciting. But with that said, I don't know when they're going to do it, and I've asked twice now.
That's okay. I just wanted them to have an update. We are going to have water to this building at some point in the near future, city water to this building. It's currently the well water. For those of you who are like, why are my hands so slimy when I get done? It's not the soap, it's the water.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, Steph, you have a question?
Yeah, that's part of my question is, so you're going to do a laundry mat in here, right?
Laundry mat. That's
not a laundry mat,
extreme.
but we are going to have laundry. We are going to have a washer and dryer, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering about that and how we were going to.
Yeah, we're going to have a utility space, so there will be a washer and dryer in that space. Yeah.
The plumbing's coming in after the water.
Oh, yes. Okay, so part of inside of this schedule, things like rough-in plumbing, they call it top out, that's next, because we already have our sewer and everything in the foundation. Coming out, you'll see those pipes inside of the building. As soon as we get walls built, then the plumbing companies can come in and put the lines through the walls and get prepped and ready for sinks and toilet locations and all that kind of stuff.
Does that answer your question, Steph?
Yeah, I was just curious.
I mean, it's not going to be, we're not,
Are we going to have a functional kitchen in there?
we are going to have a functional kitchen. We are going to have functioning washer and dryer, but it's not at this point set up to be like a community where they can come in and do laundry. It's for if we are housing people or for things that need to be done on site. But it's set up for a washer and dryer. It'll have 2 showers. Is that
Yes.
the answer to your question? Okay. Any other questions for David regarding the build itself?
Yeah, so is there, like, I don't know what phase, if it's this part or the next phase, but is there considerations for like things like network and making sure?
Okay. So the question is for people online, is if there's plans for networking capabilities from this building to the next building, how we're going to run everything. So we do have in the plans to run conduit from this building, the back of this building, over to the new building to where we can run, networking lines and all that kind of thing. Now, we don't have like anything in the budget for like a network system.
I'll talk about some of that. Tim, if you're wanting to be part of that process, you're certainly welcome to be part of that process.
Yeah.
But I will talk about some of that in a minute.
Yeah, but short of ensuring we have the ability to run hardline, there's nothing else planned for it.
We're going to have the conduit underneath the concrete in order to get it pulled.
Yeah, and there's going to be tons of attic space that's accessible that we'll be able to get into, run lines, do drops anywhere we want in the building. Yeah.
Any other questions about? So you're here for one of 2 reasons. You want to either know when the building's going to get done, or you want to know how much it costs. Those are the only 2 reasons you're here tonight.
She's here because Paul's here.
You're
and
here
Paul
'cause
said,
Paul's
"You're
here?"
coming."
Okay.
I read that one.
I wanted David to do his part first because once we start getting into the numbers, I know some people check out, and I get it. That's okay. But if you have other questions about the build, I don't want to look past that. Yes.
What's
10,000 square feet.
Why is the city saying that you need the RPDA system?
Because of the well.
Because there's well on the property.
Yes.
Did you mention something about housing people?
It's our hope and plan, if ever there's a need to be a shelter, we can be a shelter. So that kind of housing people. Disaster relief, 2 years ago when we had the freeze and everybody's electricity was going out, the hope is that we can be a warming station and we would still have electricity. I would love to put in generators. It's not in the budget at the moment, but I would love to put in generators so that that can also be something that transpires if needed. Warming station, cooling station, somebody who has a fire, locally, that kind of disaster relief stuff. Yes? Say it again.
How big is the current building?
This building is 10,000. So the question, I need to say the questions. I apologize. Josh asked, are we going to house people? What does that mean? That's what I answered for Josh. Randy, my dad, just asked, how big is this current building? This current building is also 10,000 square feet. Yeah, it's like 9,900 something, and that had to be a code. Yeah, I assumed that was a code thing when I saw the square footage, but we're essentially going to be at 20,000 square feet between the two buildings. And for anybody who would like to know, the South Lake property was 18,000 something, 18,200 square feet, I think. Any other questions about the build out? Okay. And we can certainly come back and answer more questions. Yep.
I guess I do have a question.
Go for it, Greg.
I guess the city's not trying to make you put in a fire suppression.
So the question is, do we have to put a...
That's why it was just under 10,000.
Yeah, the question that Greg is asking is, do we have to put a fire suppression system in? I'm assuming you're saying this building. At this point, they've not looked at this building. We don't want them to look at this building. I'm not asking for them to look at this building, but there may be a point where they do, and if that's something that comes up, we can have that conversation. I would assume we're grandfathered in unless we make adjustments.
That was our sticking point, was we were trying to figure out how to
So
expand in here.
we're not doing a fire suppression system in the back. We are at 10,000 square feet, and the reason why we're able to is because there's a main wall separating the large congregate area, the 4,500 square foot, that is maxed out at 299 capacity, has a fire wall separating the classrooms and offices.
Okay.
So it's
So there's a
eliminated.
fire system, it's just not there.
So let me...
Then the second thing that we had to do was put a
Fire hydrant.
which is
So let me repeat what David just said for the people online. The reason we're not putting a fire suppression system in the building behind us is because we have a fire wall that's separating the great room, which is where the most of the activities will happen, from the classrooms and the offices and the fire hydrant. So those two reasons are the reason we don't have to have a fire suppression system in the other building. Yep.
Once we stop using well water, are we gonna have better water pressure for mugs and stuff?
Steph asked about the city water and water pressure. Yes, the answer is we will have better water pressure. Well, I mean, assuming the city has good pressure, it's not going to be based on the well pump.
This is about this building, current maintenance. Y'all replaced the filter on the tank since we moved in?
No, I didn't know that there was a filter on the tank.
We didn't need it for years.
Okay, so Greg asked if we've changed the filter on the
We changed it then.
on the well pump. So it's something we can look at
at the wellhead
No,
or
at
in
the
here?
tank.
Okay.
at the tank in here.
And
So
it hadn't been changed for a decade or so.
okay,
And so at that time, the water was pretty bad. We changed it out.
we can look at that. The purpose of keeping the well moving forward is for irrigation.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Any other questions about the build? All right, let me get into the numbers. If you have questions about the build, I'm happy to come back to them. All right, here's an account, a high-level account of how we have spent money. If you have questions, ask me. I will do my best. I want to start at the beginning. Between the sale of South Lake and the giving that has come in towards our building project already, we've started with $4,650,000. So that's the round number that we're starting with. We paid off the South Lake mortgage and all of the closing costs for $1,106,992. We then purchased this property for $500,000, leaving us with $3,043,008. We had $64,195 that came in on interest while we waited for us to get the permit from the city to do the things that we were doing. So our starting amount that we're going to be working from, if there's somebody who's making notes, our starting amount that we're working from is $3,107,203. So that's what we are working from in order to do everything we're about to talk about. Of that money, we've spent money on this building. So on this building, we have, when we moved in, you saw we began fixing things immediately. We replaced all of the air conditioner. We fixed the significant leaks that we had. We purchased these chairs. We fixed all of the different broken items. We extended the stage. We upgraded and updated the sound, video, and lights. We put in new carpet. We put in, we did new paint inside and outside. We did the new parking lot. This building is currently been switched from septic to city sewer. It's been switched from propane to natural gas. And as you heard from David, it will be switching to water soon from the city. We also added security cameras, which we didn't broadcast, but all of our rooms now have security cameras. Those were put in probably a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. Our kids' classrooms, actually, we put them in 2 months ago because we had them installed right before we launched the Saturday nights. We wanted cameras in all the classrooms and on all the exits. Since we were welcoming the community in, we didn't know what the kids would be like. We didn't want our teachers to be accused of anything. So it's protection for our teachers as well as protection for the kids. So all of that we spent on this building, including the parking lot, is $748,115.64. Of that money, $690,927 came from that money that I started with, the $3 million. We spent another $57,188.64 from our general checking account or our operating funds that we have on site. So we have already spent on this building and everything to get this building to what you see on a weekly basis, $748,115.64. Any questions about that before I move to the back building? Okay. Our initial estimate on the 10,000 square foot building in December of 2020, so we are 3 years removed from the initial estimate. The initial estimate was $1,771,260 for the build of that building. We've already spent on the project $1,497,269. That includes the metal, that includes the foundation, that includes running the lines back there, that includes the roughing on the plumbing, that includes the dirt work that had to be done. That's the permits, that's the fire hydrant, that's all of the money that's been spent to get that building. We've spent $1,497,269. Our current estimated expenses for the remaining funds to complete this building, so what we think it's going to cost us to finish this, the build of the building, I'm just talking about the structure, is $741,390. What do we have left right now currently? $919,007. So that's what's in the building fund. If David and TD Construction and all of the subcontractors and all of the, there's a lot of moving parts, but if we hit the mark on the current remaining expenses being at the $700,000 number, then we should have $177,617 left. Now, I realize if you are a numbers person in the room and you've done quick math, you will see that we've already tracked at 26% over that initial bid of the $1,771,000. And I want to give just a quick recap as to why we have tracked higher than that, because I want to be real clear about something here tonight. It is not David's fault. We're all friends with David, and David's our contractor. It's both of these things at the same time, and I want to be real clear. He has done an incredible job of how he's managed the project and how he's handled everything, and he is doing his absolute best financially for the church. So some of the overage, some of that 26% overage is just the fact that inflation since 2020. I was asking Ron, we're at a 5% inflation since 2020. And I don't know if that's year over year or if it's just total, but we're just at inflation, we're at 5%. We spent $72,000 on a fire hydrant, which was not in the initial estimate. We spent $127,000, if you want the exact number, $127,716 on permitting, when we estimated $24,100. We did $24,100. So that's $103,000 more on permitting, which included things that we never would have thought we would have had to have done: a floodplain study, the forestry permit, the traffic study, just things that the city can mandate that wasn't on our radar. The adjusting from a Category 2 to a Category 3 building in the middle of manufacturing cost $97,638. That wasn't in the initial estimate. That's not David's fault. That's the city making a change that we had no control over. Raising the foundation in the back by 3 feet cost us an additional $38,462. We knew we would have to raise the ground some, but we were caught off guard a little bit by it having to be 3 feet. Actually, it was more. It's 39 inches?
39.
Yeah, 39 inches. So when we say we're tracking at 26% over, $311,716, and you don't have that number, Laura. $311,716,000, 300,000. Anyways, you heard me the first 17 times. Is just those 4 things. So when we look at what we're over, I want to be super clear. Nobody would have known we had to put in a fire hydrant. I don't think any contractor would have known. I don't think any contractor would have known that the city was going to tell us we had to move from a Category 2 to a Category 3 in the middle of manufacturing after they had already approved the building. Like, that's not, these aren't things that we can just plan for. And so when we're talking about the 26% overage, I want to point those things out and make sure nobody points a finger at David, because it's not his fault. So what does this mean? It means, first, we celebrate. We celebrate because up to this point, God has given us every dollar we need to accomplish everything that's already been done. And I can't tell you how incredible that is. I can tell you that we should celebrate because we've not taken on any debt, and we've eliminated $1.6 million of debt for Grace Community Church, which is just incredible. Praise the Lord for that. We should celebrate because based on what we know, what we can project currently, we have all the dollars we need to finish the building. And we give God great praise for that. I've gone through this presentation about 10 times. I've gone through the numbers for 3 days to make sure the numbers were right and I wasn't presenting something that was incorrect on accident. And I was talking to the staff today and I said, what I want to communicate to you tonight and to anybody watching is this is so different than 4 years ago. And what God has done and how he has turned things is incredible. We have a building in the back that we're building debt-free. This building with $700,000 worth of modifications is debt-free. Yeah. God has done incredible things, and he needs to get all of the praise. This is not our doing. It's not us. It is all the Lord. So we need to celebrate first. We also need to share where things are at. So here is where things are at. Once the build is complete, there's still work to do to finish phase 1. So the building is part of phase 1. Phase 1 includes getting into the building and functioning in that building, right? Just because the building is completed doesn't mean it's ready for us to move in. Once the build is complete, there's still work to do to finish phase 1, and that will require money and time. The estimated budget we have been working from has always only included the building portion of phase 1. What we presented to Foursquare and what we presented to you for approval was the build. When we started this journey in 2020, we believed God would provide everything we would need, and we still believe God's going to provide everything we would need. We've always been upfront on phase 1 completion. What we have presented was the estimate from TD Construction, and as I've already said, and I'm going to say again, it's not their responsibility to provide numbers for the finishing portion of phase 1. They're not responsible for all of that. Some of that is just us and what we have to do. So the remaining portion of tonight and our time together is about presenting the rest of the numbers for the completion of phase 1 and sharing a more defined vision for phase 2. We've talked about phase 2 as well. If we were to continue at a 26% overage, then we will still need $192,761 to complete the build, of which we have $177,617 in our building fund. So I just want to be real clear about what I just said. If we track at a 26% overage, I can't tell you we're going to track at a 26% overage, but that's what we've tracked at so far. So it's the number that I felt obligated to share with you. So if we continue to track at that 26% overage, we're going to need $192,761 to finish the build. And we currently have in the building fund, no, that's not our checking account, that's not our savings account, just in the building fund, we have $177,617. In the church checking account and in the church savings account, which is different than the building fund, there's a total of $248,506. This money is made up of emergency money, our contingency, which is currently sitting at $58,441, and our checking account, which is our operating money. That's how we pay the bills. That's how we do ministry. That's how salaries get paid, of $190,065. This does not include any money that's in designated funds, children's ministry, youth ministry, benevolence, missions. All of that money is in a different bucket that we would never touch for building, that we would never touch for salaries, that we would never touch to pay the bills. That is ministry designated money. You said, I want to give this to missions, and it goes into a missions bucket, and that's the only place that it can be spent. All of the dollars that we've talked about does not include any of that money. So if we continue at a 26% overage, we still have enough money to finish the building. Praise the Lord. He gets all of the glory for that. But it would mean we'd have to spend $15,000 out of our general operating funds to complete the build. So I'm not putting this on David. I told him I was going to say this. I don't believe we're going to continue to track at 26%. We will have expenses we're unaware of. That is part of this. But we are to the place in the build that David does on a week-to-week basis. These are the things that it's a bigger scale from the standpoint of it's a 10,000 square foot building and not your bathroom or your kitchen, the things that he's been doing for years. But it's putting walls up and it's putting in restrooms. And these are things that he has done for many, many years. So I don't believe we're going to track at a 26% overage. But I need to be transparent with you that that's where we have been tracking. And so if we continued to track at that, we would need to pull $15,000 from our general operating funds. Second thing, it would also mean that we have to use the majority of our operating budget, that $190,000, to complete phase 1. So to complete phase 1, we're estimating we're going to need $120,000. That's the remaining kitchen appliances that we don't have yet. That's tables and chairs. That's audio, video, and lighting. That's toys and furniture for the kids' classrooms. That's office furniture for the offices. That's the washer and dryer. That's moving the playground over there. That's putting in double doors back here on this building because we need to make an accessible entrance since you're going to be dropping kids off on this building whichever parent is dropping the kids off is not going to want to walk around the building to get into the building. So we're going to need to put in double doors on this building. And so we're estimating that's going to cost us $120,000. Again, let me stop and say, if there is no money that comes into the building fund between now and when we get to that point in 6 months and June 10th, we have enough money in our general operating account to do that. Now, those are our general operating account. It would be taking money that you've given in order to help the church function in the capacity that we're currently functioning. But I don't know if God gave us this money in advance because he knew we would need it, or if he is going to continue to bring in resources to continue to do this. But to finish phase 1, we believe we're going to need $120,000. If there's no overage in the 26%, we have all the money we need to finish phase 1. But if we track at that 26%, we'll be taking that money from our general account unless there's money that comes in. Now I want to talk about phase 2. Phase 2 is the project that is the rest of the renovations in this building that we've talked about. And we're estimating that cost will be $200,000. There's 3 primary things in that phase 2. The first is moving the nursery from over there into where the current offices are. That's been the long-term plan. We've talked about that. We're not putting the babies across the street or across the drive. We're keeping the babies in here, and we want to put 2 windows in that room so that the moms that are in there or the workers that are in there can see into the service. One-way windows, not to where we can see back in there. So part of phase 2 is making the nursery in there. Part of phase 2 is taking the toddler room out and expanding our foyer. Because our foyer needs to be expanded, and we've known that since we've moved in. It just takes dollars to do that. Yeah, before we moved in, right. And so what we want to do is we want to take the toddler room and completely incorporate the foyer into the toddler room. So it will take moving the ceiling up, taking those walls out. Part of phase 2 that I would really love to see happen is to cut a half wall in the kitchen so that can be our welcome center where you get your coffee, where you get your donuts, and we keep the kitchen part here, and we don't have to walk things around, but rather it's just set there. And then the other part of phase 2 that is the largest expense is we need more restrooms in this building. And so we want to take what is the current nursery and give restrooms there. And so what we would do likely is turn that whole room into restrooms for the women, and likely commandeer the current women's restroom to be part of the men's restroom. And so I don't yeah, right now I know there's only 3 places to use the restroom for the men, and there's 3 places to use the restroom for the women. We know it's not enough, but this is what we have. So part of phase 2 is adding more restrooms. We are estimating that's going to take about $200,000. So, God is responsible for all of the resources that are needed. We are still committed to not taking on any debt to finish any of the project. Let me say that again. We are not taking on debt. Amen. We will repurpose everything in this building for that building if we have to do that rather than take on debt. Amen. We'll gut this building so that we could have that building. The one thing that we will not be able to do, like there's just not physically a way, we are going to have chairs for that room. So the least thing that we will have to purchase is chairs for that building, because unless you are going to be the one that's going to sign up to move these chairs into there every week and move them back into here every week and set them back up, God's responsible. We're not taking on debt. Yeah, right. We should have kept the pink ones. What I can tell you is if we do have the overage of 26%, we're going to need $335,000 to complete phase 1 and to complete phase 2 without spending our operating budget or our operating funds. And there's nobody in this room right now that wants us to have to use the operating funds to finish out phase 1 or phase 2. And we don't have to do phase 2. We aren't going to take on debt to do phase 2. Our goal is to finish phase 1. We're going to do it with the amount of excellence that we always do things, and we will put in the best possible things that we can afford, but we're not going into debt. And then if the money has come in to do phase 2, we will immediately begin phase 2. If it doesn't, we don't do phase 2. And the nursery stays over there, and this becomes some sort of a meeting room, and the restrooms stay the way they are, and the toddler room stays the way it is. That's okay. We don't have to do those things. But we believe that's the next best step for this building functioning in the best capacity possible. So if we continue at a 26% overage, we're going to need $335,000 to finish phase 1 and to finish phase 2 without spending the operating funds. If we come in at the estimated number for completing the building, then we're going to need $157,383 to not spend any of our operating funds or emergency funds to complete phase 1 and to complete phase 2. And I want to pause. Yes, Noah. It's the IFLIF, it's International Foursquare Loan Fund. And so all of the money that goes from our savings account goes into that account, and that's the name of it. So it's just the acronym for International Foursquare Loan Fund. Yeah, no problem. I said this already, I want to say it again. If there is no money that comes into the building fund between now and when we finish this building, we're going to be okay. And we're going to finish this building because God has given us enough money to finish it. I believe David's going to come in under budget, come in at budget on the phase, on the remaining portion of this. And if he doesn't come in at the estimated cost, I'll cut his hand off. No, I mean, no, seriously. Like I just don't. I am trusting the Lord. He knows where we're at. He knows what we need. And so we need $120,000 to outfit this building, move the playground, and to put doors in there. If it's not going to come from the remaining funds that are left in the IFLIF, then God's got another way for us to have it. I just don't know what it is yet. So I can't give you a number tonight of what we need. And the reason why I can't give you a number tonight of what we need is because I don't know how much it's going to cost to finish the building. I can only tell you what the number that we need is based on no overage and tracking at a 26% overage. I can tell you we're not going to do phase 2 if we don't have the money, and I'm okay with that. Our preference is to move forward with those adjustments for this building. Those of you that have been living with us at this church for any length of time, you understand we do need more restrooms. You understand we do need a larger foyer. But those aren't musts.
Right.
Those are likes.
Yes.
We are functioning just fine without those things. Would we function better? I believe we would. But we're going to be just fine if we don't. And if the bathroom's full, you can walk over to the other building. No, you can't. I'm kidding. Here's what I know. We're going to the other side of the lake.
Amen.
I'm telling you, we're going to the other side of the lake. And I know we're going to the other side of the lake. And I don't know how it's going to happen, and I don't know what it's going to look like when we get there, but we're going to the other side of the lake. The last thing I'm going to say tonight before I ask for more questions, and I think this is the most important thing, although for those of you who are the money people, the money part is the most important thing to you, and I understand that. And that's not belittling in any way. We need prayer. Like, that is the most important thing. We need prayer. David needs prayer for wisdom and strength to finish this project well. Rory needs prayer to manage the project from the church side well. We need prayer for no more hiccups and no more surprises from the city. Every time the city gets involved, it's $20,000. Like, when you go to Walmart, it costs you $100. You cannot walk into Walmart and not spend $100. You can't walk into Costco and not spend $200. Every time the city calls, it's $20,000. Every single time. We need no more surprises from the city. We need favor with our vendors and our subcontractors. Honestly, they are the ones who are going to dictate if we move forward at an overage or not. Because it's been 3 years. Like they gave us their numbers 3 years ago. They've had inflation too. And so we need favor with our subcontractors and the vendors. We need to be praying now. And if you're not, let me encourage you. You need to be praying now for what God's going to do in that building when that building's completed. We can't start praying for that when David says, okay, you can move in. It's too late at that point. We need to be praying now over that. And you need to be praying for me that I don't lose my mind, because this is stressful. I'm the pastor of the church. I'm not a builder. I'm not a businessman. I realize that all of these things fall to me, and this meeting has caused great stress for me, because I want to present correct, and I want to be transparent, and I want to present well. And going through these numbers over and over and over again, they start running around in circles and they don't make sense anymore. And I'm learning more and more. This is all above my pay grade, and yet this is where God's put me. And so I'm going to do the best I can with what he's asked me to do. And so that's the numbers. That's what I wanted to say. What are your questions? I want to answer any question I can. Greg?
I had 2 things. I only remember one.
You only have one. You should have wrote it down, man. Okay, Greg has a question. What is it?
On the estimated amount for completion.
For the completion of the building,
Yeah.
or for the completion of phase 1?
The building.
Okay, yeah.
The 700-some thousand.
Uh-huh.
Is there any contingency already built into that number?
Well, that would be the $177,000 that would be left.
No, I mean that estimate.
No, that estimate is just how the dollars are assigned. All those, there's 700, and I need to go back in my thing. There's $741,390 with names. Some of them say electric, some of them say water, some of them say concrete. There is not contingency in that. That's the 26% overage I've been talking about.
I was just wanting to make sure.
Yep, no, that's okay.
Had 2 contingencies.
No, we don't have 2 contingencies, just the one. Richard?
Mentioned a little bit of it, but I'd like to hear a little more about where you anticipate the 46% overage coming from.
Okay.
Because I would think at this point, we should have solid numbers from all of our subs and what it's gonna take maybe to finish the building.
Okay.
That should be a fixed, we're talking 6 months.
Yeah.
So we should, I realize there may be some cost increase. 26% sounds a real high.
Richard, I don't believe it's going to be 26%, but I have to project based on what we've done because it's all I know. I believe David's going to come in close to the number that we've been talking about, that's $741,000. But things that are outside our control, the engineer, unbeknownst to us, put in metal studs instead of wood studs. Going back to the city, if we didn't get that changed, metal studs were $9 a stud, whereas wood studs were $2 a stud. So that's the places where that overage would come from. It's not from the bids. Kano's doing our electric. We've got a bid from them. It's not changing, right? Like, we don't believe that. The only other variable that we're waiting on right now that David expressed to me beforehand this evening was if for some reason the concrete people came back and adjusted their thing because they agreed to do it in a phase 1 and a phase 2. That would be the only other place where there would be, I think, significant overages. It's the unknown, but I'm with you, Richard. We shouldn't be at a 26% overage. I have to work from some number to present to everybody tonight. Jordan?
Are you saying that it's a projected overage based off of if they don't switch from the city doesn't approve from the steel?
No. The projected overage that I gave tonight, the $741,390, if there was a 26% increase, which is, where's that number in my, which would be $192,761. That's based on the last portion of this project being 26% over. To make a presentation, you have to start with something. And so I started with our estimate, and then I went from, here's what we've been over so far. So I can't envision us being any more than that because this is where we start having control.
Do you know where the numbers will change if the city approves the wood stuff
the city should approve. We're hoping that it's approved by next week. And the bid is at the wood studs, not the metal studs. Trevor, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so I think what Richard was kind of saying was when we talk about the estimated expenses remaining, that is at the current time cost. Like right now, that is what it is. It's not based off the bid that we got from
Let me ask David. So the question, Trevor, and he's suggesting was Richard's question, is the $741,390, that estimate, is that based on 3 years ago or is that based on current numbers?
Everything is now current. The only one that I'm waiting back to hear from, I told you tonight, was the concrete guys.
Okay, so
For phase 2, the concrete.
and for the people online, I realize you probably heard the answer to that question is that $741,390, and every one of those dollars has a name right now, are on current bids. The only bid that we're waiting on to confirm is the concrete, which would be the remaining parking spaces and the fire drive, all the stuff that's going to be in the back. Yes, Steph.
Are we gonna go get our old playground equipment, or are we gonna leave all the children in South Lake crying, or are we gonna get
So, Steph, part of that $120,000 to finish phase 1 includes going to get the playground.
So leaving them.
Yeah, Kim.
Since the permits seem to be what were so unexpected with that overage, but like you said, David kind of knows from here on
Sure.
what it's looking like. Is that much more comfortable? Because that seems to be where a lot of the overage came from.
I want to the question is say it again so I say it the way you said it.
So since a lot of that overage came from permits that were unexpected,
A lot of this is from Kim. A lot of the overage on the previous 26% came from the permits, the fire hydrant, the category 2 to category 3, and the buildup of the foundation.
and so since David is so familiar with the interior, would that be safer to say?
Is it safer to say, because this is David's area of expertise, that this number is going to be much closer? The answer is yes. I can't tell you if it's a 5% overage, if it's a 10% overage, if it's 5% under. I'm still praying. Some of our vendors are listening tonight, and they come back and they say, you know what, I didn't realize that. Let me come in under. That is possible. I don't. It's not probable, but it is possible.
I know you didn't foresee a lot of what happened anyway, but it seems like a lot of the major exterior, huge expenses.
So let me say again the last numbers that I gave, just for the sake of repeating them. If we finish at 26% overage, we'll need $335,000. If we come in at the estimate, and that's for phase 1 and phase 2. Both, that's finishing the restrooms in here, that's the foyer, that's the nursery getting moved. If we come in at budget or close to that, we'll still need $157,383. But that includes the $200,000 for phase 2 that was not part of the initial. That's new money. That's not. We've talked about it. We've thrown it out there every time we've had a business meeting. But I'm including that now because we're getting to the place where we need to have those conversations. Randy.
Okay, so I think I understand what you said, but I just,
It's okay.
if we come in for the balance of phase 1 and the balance of the move-in, if we come in on budget, you can pay, you're good to go. You've got extra to finish the building and move into the building.
If we come in at budget, we don't need anything to do phase 1, which is what I've been saying that. I've been trying to give God praise for that. If we come in at budget. Now that is coming in at the 700 and whatever $1,000 number, and there's no unforeseen jumps in anything, we do have enough to do all of phase one. And that is the thing I want to make sure. I've been trying to say all night. It's if there's a continued overage that we have a problem, and it's when we include phase two that we begin to go over, which is expected. That's not an unknown thing. We haven't budgeted for phase two.
Right.
Just a comment then. I'm really surprised because, all of the unexpected things that were horrific expenses. I think it's amazing.
It is amazing, and David has done an incredible job, and Rory has done an incredible job. If I hadn't shaved my head, I would just lose it all by now. These guys are doing an incredible job, and I understand. There's a few people in the room who have done builds like this before. I'm not one of them, so I didn't have a real experiential understanding of what to expect. I just, David's going to build us a building. Like, we'll be done in 6 months. I knew it was not going to be 6 months, but it's going to be fine. And in some ways, this is not, maybe this is naivety, or maybe this is actually what it's supposed to be like. I feel like that's what the childlike faith is. I mean, honestly, that's how I'm living in this. I don't understand it. I'm just trusting God said we're going to the other side of the lake. And so I don't know where it's going to come from. And I know there have been times that's been driving Rory crazy, because we'll be sitting in the office and I'm like, it's going to be enough. It's going to be fine. And Rory is like, I know it's going to be fine, but do you know what the numbers are? And I said, yes, it's going to be fine. But I don't really understand everything. God gets all the glory. We, guys, to understand that we retired $1.6 million in debt. We are in a debt-free property that we've already spent almost $800,000 on. And we're going to finish this building and still be debt-free. God is the one who gets the praise. Our purpose tonight was to update you and to give you real numbers. I would be irresponsible to not share with you, this is where we're at, this is where we will be at if we continue to track at what we've been tracking at. Therefore, this is what we would need. I don't want to use our operating funds to do anything. So as the pastor of Grace Community Church, the guy who has to respond to council on a monthly basis, I have no desire to use any of the $190,000 to finish phase one over here or to do phase two. I will tell you, I will not lead our council to use any of those funds for phase two. That would be poor leadership on my part, and it would be poor stewardship of the resources that have already been given. If needed, I will ask council to use money to finish phase one. We have to finish phase one. And if God gave us the money in advance to finish phase one, then praise the Lord. If God's going to bring in the rest of the money to finish phase one, then praise the Lord.
Right. Amen.
God is the one who's responsible for all of this. David has been an incredible conduit that the Lord has used to bless our church and to bless all of the subcontractors that have been picked and handling everything. He has been a tremendous blessing. And I want to say again, I've already said it probably 10 times tonight. I said it 20 times in our staff meeting earlier. This man is incredible, and he is not the problem. He is not the reason we have overages, and nobody needs to look at him and say, hey man, how come we didn't get it at the, because it's not him. He is doing an incredible job, and everybody here needs to know that. I want to say it 1,000 times. So is Rory. Rory is doing an incredible job. These two men have blessed our church in ways only our council and I probably really understand, because they are managing this so very well. Other questions? Thank you, June. Other questions? Rory.
I was just going to comment, if the only thing that was worse than paying the $127,000 for permits
Yeah, Rory. Rory said the only thing worse than paying the $127,000 for permits was the 2 years it took to get them, and that is true. I mean, we are 3 years into this because it took 2 years to get a permit, which is just, it is ridiculous. Thank you, Wally. You gave me a word that way I didn't have to cuss. Michelle, you raised your hand.
I'm just curious,
Yep.
on phase 2,
Yep.
what are we doing with that room?
That's going to become the youth room, and it will be the permanent youth room because all of our kids' ministry will be over there except the nursery.
Is there gonna be any kind of
We
something help with
there will be audio video that's installed over there. Well, the youth aren't meeting on Sunday mornings. So they're still going to meet on Wednesday nights. Tyler and I have had that conversation. I asked him if he wanted to move to Sundays, and he, at this point, doesn't want to. So that will just be an empty room on Sunday mornings. Currently. Yeah.
Part of phase 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are building a hallway.
So what I would love to see happen in phase 2, again, everything is what can we afford, is those double doors that we are going to be adding to this as an egress, exit and an entrance. There's 2 things we need to do. We will need to add probably a double door here. I'm not comfortable with this being the only door into the sanctuary for those that are coming in from here. And we'd like to build a hallway to where it's kind of what we would likely do is put a door here and a door here, and then that way it's a hallway, and that would be a second sound barrier if we ever did do stuff in that room. But all of that's part of phase 2. Phase 1 is get doors in there so that we can get into the building. Kids will then be over there, so we're not walking through our children's ministry to get into the sanctuary.
Do you guys have like a design, layout that
Of the new building?
of the whole?
We haven't done any blueprints for this building for phase 2. Those are estimates based on what I've asked David. I said, if we did this, if we raised the ceiling, we took out these walls, if we cut a wall in over here, if we put the nursery over here, we put some windows in over here, we added restrooms there, what would that cost? That's where that number's coming from. That building, of course, we have blueprints for everything. Yes.
This discussion reminds me of mine,
Okay.
which had to do with doing work in here.
Uh-huh.
Part of the reason North Creek couldn't do the vision concept was because of the grandfathering of
Right.
fire code. And as soon as we started thinking about making actual major changes,
Yeah.
got some killer coming.
So Greg is pointing out the potential of our current grandfathered in fire code expectations. Will that change when we begin to adjust the building? The answer is it could. It likely will. We're hoping that this fire hydrant here helps us out tremendously in that, to where it's not going to mean we got to put in a fire suppression system inside the building. Structurally, we're opening it up. We're not closing it in. So that I am hoping helps us versus the thing, but I don't know the answer entirely.
That was prohibited for us.
Yeah. Michelle.
So our question is, when do we start really blueprinting and really working on phase 2?
If I get $200,000 tonight or $300,000 tonight, I'm gonna have him start drawing that up immediately.
So you're waiting for funds?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna start worrying about phase 2. I'm not gonna worry about phase 2 unless we can afford phase 2. There's no reason to invest time and energy into the phase 2 if we're still concerned about finishing phase 1 financially. So when we know phase 1 is paid for and we have the money in hand for phase 2, because we're not going into debt for this, I'll put David on the job immediately.
Are we going to the full 200 before we start planning, or is there a
So
room in there that we can?
Michelle just asked, do we need a full $200,000 to start phase 2? Before you say what you were going to say, my response to that would be, when we have a good chunk in hand, how much is it going to cost to make this nursery? Okay, let's do the nursery. How much is it going to cost to make this the foyer? Okay, let's do the foyer. We can do that in stages. But I want to, today, I can't say with certainty we're not going to have to use our operating funds to finish phase one. When I know, because either money comes in or we have finished phase one, that we don't have to use operating funds, that's when we'll start really focusing on a phase two part of this. But it's premature to focus on phase two because I'm not going to use operating funds to do phase two. Does that answer it well? What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, surely if there's somebody who wants to start preliminary designs and things on their own, if they want to come up with ideas, like we can accept ideas and look at plans.
So we have I don't know how to say that because I have a general idea what I want to see happen. I don't know if that's...
Michelle's just asking, like, to start the design process, start laying out some...
You're talking about CAD?
It doesn't have to be done on CAD. It could just be like an interior design. So if you, like, say you have the heart or passion to do interior design, and you want to start playing around with, like, I'm happy to look at blueprints and blueprints, but floor plans and that type of thing, and try to give input as part of the church family. You know, that's just... So if that's something you want to do, and
yeah, okay, I understand. Her basic question is, can we do phase two in parts? I think is probably the best way to.
I'm just believing it's fun.
I am too. I am too.
So I'm just wondering, like, at what point are we like?
So really, truly, if
Michelle has the funds already.
yeah, here's the reality.
But I am just kind of curious, like.
So in my mind,
To get to that.
So in my mind, as the guy who has to stand up here and sweat out all these questions,
So many more.
it's good, and I'm going to do everything I can to answer it, Michelle.
Hey, you got us concrete. I like the
If we have the money for phase two on top of the 26%, we're full go. Until we have all of the numbers locked in, I don't want to move down that road because I think it's not good stewardship. I will not use the operating funds.
Is that
The 157 is if we don't have to use the 177 to finish phase one. If we have to use the 177 to finish phase one, then we need 340,000, I think. 335,000. So 335,000 is likely the max that we need to do all of phase one and phase two. 157 is likely the minimum we need to finish phase one and phase two. And we know we will need 157,000 even if he stays on budget. Even if he hits every marker on finishing phase one in the build, we'll still need that amount of money to do phase two. Trevor.
So obviously I'm a numbers person.
Yep.
Oh,
Thank you, Logistics Amazon, and now DH. Yeah.
So right, so the numbers that we're looking at, because we've never really talked about phase two except
Correct.
afterwards.
Well, we talked about phase two when we actually voted on phase one, but it was phase two will come after phase one is completed. This is not new information.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure for those who are new, they wouldn't necessarily know that.
Yes. In terms of budgeting and actual
Correct.
numbers.
Budgeting, this is new. Yes.
So we would essentially, if we stay on budget, we would have $43,000 left. Correct. If we stay on
Yes, if we stay on budget and it costs us the $120,000 for the furniture, the toys, the playground, yes, we would have $43,000 left.
Okay. I would just like to point out for people who haven't been here, like during the whole process, when we first approved this, we essentially built a budget with a $200,000
Contingency, correct?
right? That 10% over the
It was actually 25% over the 1.7.
that too.
Okay.
And so I find it amazing that we essentially increased $300,000
And God is still taking care of everything.
come out positive if we stay
Yep.
to the budget. I think that's just
Trevor's giving a praise report for those who are in line of how incredible God has been to give us resources in advance of the expenses. Yes, Kim.
So speaking of in advance, I'm not gonna say phase 3 because that might be.
What's phase 3, Kim?
I was just wondering.
You know what phase 3 is? Genuinely, I know what I want phase 3 to be already. Buying the property, because I want that property for this church so that we can do community stuff out there. And when we outgrow this building, we can put a sanctuary over there.
Okay, so phase 2.5.
Okay.
What are we gonna do? Are we gonna just go to more services when all the people start flowing in?
Yes. We're already at Saturday right now is averaging about 75 people total. Sunday is averaging about 150, 160 relative, but there's doubles in that, so please don't. I'm not trying to inflate our numbers. I don't like to do evangelistic counting. I would do a second Sunday service before we ever even talked about having to build another building. We got a lot of room to grow before we ever have to do that.
Because I think of that space over there, and if we're building a hallway, but what if we needed to use that space?
It is in my mind, Kim. I have said to Rory and maybe David, I don't know if I ever said anything to David, if we had to, could we put the stage over here and extend everything this way? There's probably possibilities for that, but I'd rather go to a second service on Sunday morning than the amount of gain would be minimal to the cost investment to do something like that. To gain 60 people per service, which is probably really 25 people, because as you see here, we don't all like to sit next to somebody. The amount of dollars it would take to do that, to move the stage, it's probably not worth it, but it is something I have talked about out loud. It's not just something that's been in my head. To me, the phase 3, when we've outgrown this facility and we're running 3 services, is we got to get that land and we got to get a building built over there. And that would be the phase 3. But that's when the Lord provides it. It's all His land, it's all His money, it's all His stuff, and I'm not worried about it. God's got all that under control. Yes. Since we're kicking the kids out of this building, that's what Steph just said. I'm kidding. Yes. That building will be locked and nobody can get in. We'll have 2 sets of doors, much like we had in Southlake. And so the first set of doors will be able for you to get into. The second set of doors you're not going to be able to get into. I mean, there'll be a check-in place there, and once we cross X time, you're not going to be able to get in. Only if you have a key to the building will you be able to get in there. So that's how we're going to protect and we're going to have cameras and we're going to have all the security stuff over there. But that building is basically going to be locked down for our kids once that building is set up for Sunday mornings. Tiffany?
Before that, we're going to have another person that's sit here, so parents have to come in.
So
Like, how do parents
talk to our children's pastor. We honestly, we don't have all of that figured out yet. The big space over there is going to be the kids' church room. And so somebody would be able to see the parents standing there because you'll be in that room. The classroom, so we'll have an L shape for classrooms. That's going to be 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, however we do the breakdown. So I don't know if that ultimately some of that is programming. Sure. Some of this is programming, and that will fall to how our children's pastor decides that they want to do it. Pam, I'm sure, will have an incredible idea. But we're 6 months from that, and so we haven't got to that yet. We do. Rory, can you pull one of the blueprints and lay it out on the table back there so people can see it if they'd like to on their way out? I don't have a digital version of it, but I can show you the paper version of it. Other questions? Paul? Mm-hmm. Yep. So Paul just said in his comment, is we didn't like the delays that we had, but we need to also give God praise because those delays brought us $65,000 in interest. And so through those delays, it gave us more money to be able to, again, finish the project where we need to finish the project. Tim.
So I know we don't have budget to like use demolition, but has there been consideration for renting in terms of providing space for like an interior closet? How frequently should we use this?
Okay, so Tim's asking about the tech over there. In the 120,000, Tim is getting all the audio, video, tech stuff over there. So there is money for it for part of phase one. Where it all goes, that's not been decided yet, and what we need hasn't been decided yet. I put in that 120,000. Rory, was it $25,000 for audio, video, tech? I think we in that $120,000 to finish phase one is $25,000. We're not intending to do a full sanctuary sound system over there. That's not our goal. So I'd love to talk with you about it. If that's, I actually don't know what you do, Tim. I know you're in charge and you do tech stuff, and you've helped us with our website, which is really great, by the way. If this is actually what you do for a living, then yes, let's have a conversation. I would love for the business to go to your business if that's possible. Kim.
Kind of along the same lines, my mind is just always going with infrastructure as far as staff
Mm-hmm.
and jobs.
We need more volunteers and we need more staff.
And commitment for volunteers, but that means the program being solid and enticing, really. to
Sure.
me.
Yeah.
And so, are those some, I know, I don't know if this is just focused on building tonight, but we wanted to bring that up too, because that is something that I'm really passionate about. And
What does that mean? Say it differently so I can respond to it appropriately.
so just from my own experience here, I work a lot in children's with CAM,
Yep.
but I don't feel like I know, and I don't need to know a lot about the volunteers, but we're all like there's a whole group of volunteers more against, consistent local staff. But when does when do we start having like role descriptions for the volunteers so they really know what's expected?
So
Have some high quality.
Kim is asking a much larger question that is not for tonight, but let me state it out loud. How do we do better at giving job descriptions for the volunteers and connecting our volunteers and who's managing the volunteers? I think that's what I'm hearing. And the answer, Michelle, is currently it's siloed. Tyler is handling the youth volunteers. Pam is handling the children's volunteers. Rory and Laura are handling a lot of the other volunteers. For those of you who don't know, for the last year, Michelle has been on staff as a 1 day a week part-time staff member to help Laura because we recognized a year ago that Laura needed help and she was overloaded. And so council helped bring Michelle on staff to help Laura. So Michelle's helping with some of that to help offload some of that. That's not a good answer, but it is the real answer. And so we want to do that. One of the things that I don't want to go into my programming ideas because we'll be here all night. And
And I think where I was going with that was when someone asks, is someone going to be standing at the door, or is a lot of times those are volunteer.
it's going to be Tad, and he's going to be like this.
But I was wondering if we were budgeting into that something for annual volunteer meetings or.
Yes. So one of the things that's on my calendar for this year is a giant volunteer appreciation dinner, and the hope is that that will turn into a giant volunteer appreciation dinner, and twice a year, once that and once is a training and an equipping, and those are things we need to do. Kim, this is not an excuse, but it is a reality. We do a lot of things out of this church, and we aren't staffed enough to do it, but we're staying within our resources. So council, I'm going to share this. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, please. They're all here. I have petitioned to the council, can we add staff members next year, because we need it. And they want to add staff members, but because we don't know if we're going to have to use general operating funds to finish phase one, we can't with integrity take that money to add staff. And so as soon as phase one is done, if we don't have to use operating funds, they've already said, yes, we know we need another full-time staff member and another part-time staff member to help Pam in her children's ministry, to do what Michelle's doing. But we can't spend the money twice. And because we need to hold that money to finish phase one, we can't add additional staff at this point. We know we need it. We're not blind to that. It's just the reality of we're doing so much, and God has blessed us incredibly, but we just can't spend the money twice. And so we want to be good stewards of the resources that he's given us. Yeah. Jordan?
Is there anything with the unforeseen permit requests that has come to the city, and with currently the progress of the finished out, is there anything that remains unvetted, or is there areas of trees?
That's a David question, and it would probably be better to just have a one-on-one conversation versus something in this context. But he's happy to have that conversation with you. And if he's not, you come tell me. I'll beat him up. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. I want to pray for you, and I want to ask the Lord to help us, because he will, and I know that he will. My goal was to get you done by the time youth got done. They got done 1 minute ago. So, or they should have been done 1 minute ago. So let me pray. Lord, I thank you for this time. I thank you for the group of people that are here that have invested their time and energy, those who are watching online who have invested their time and energy, and they care about what you're doing here at Grace Community Church. Lord, first and foremost, I want to give you praise and say thank you that you helped us retire $1.6 million of debt. I can remember that debt and how much of a weight it was on me personally. God, thank you so much for doing that and changing the trajectory of our financial position. It's only because you have blessed us, Lord, and I give you praise for that. And Lord, I want to give you praise that you've allowed us to build this beautiful 10,000 square foot building, and we are going to be able to do it debt-free because you're giving us the resources. And that's not a faith statement from the standpoint of you've already helped us. And I give you praise for that, Lord. Thank you so much for helping us. Lord, I also want to ask that you help our council, that you help David, that you help me and Rory to be good stewards of the resources that you've given us. That we will always be transparent, that we will always be honest, and that we will always do the best we can to honor you with every financial decision we make. And God, I pray that you would continue to utilize what we're doing to impact this community. Lord, we don't need a building if we're not loving this community. And so, Lord, I pray that you would allow us to use these two facilities to impact this community in an incredible way. That we would see salvations, that we would see people filled with the Holy Spirit, that we would see people baptized, Lord, that we would see marriages restored, and we would see families restored, and Lord, people getting out of debt, and people coming to you with their fears and their anxieties, and you bringing physical healing and emotional healing and spiritual healing. Lord, all of this money being spent and all of this investment is worthless if we don't see lives touched and changed. And so, Lord, I pray that you would continue to open doors and you would continue to give us favor in this community because, God, you are good and you care about these people and you love these people. Help us to see them the way you see them and to love them the way that you love them. In your name I pray, Jesus. Amen. For anybody who asked questions on the prayer line, if there are any, I will respond to those when we finish. I'm not ignoring them. I was just answering the questions in-house. Other than that, thank you very much. If you still have questions, come talk to me. I'm happy to do it. The blueprints are on the table over there for this building if you'd like to see it. Thank you, everybody.